So glad you decided to join me today. I am going to create a piece of mixed media art on a Canson Art Board. So I'm just taking an art board off the block here and trying to decide what I want to do, as usual, working intuitively. And I had some Payne's gray acrylic paint and some Quinacridone nickel azo gold left on my palette from a previous project, so I just decided to go ahead and use that up and get a base coat down on this board. So that's what I'm doing here, just watering it down and making it do. Those of you who follow me know that these are two of my absolute favorite colors to use together. So then I just went through some of my book pages and tore some pieces from different pages with different size text, and I'm putting that all down with Liquitex matte medium, fluid matte medium, just kind of randomly. I'm thinking at this point that I probably want to do a face on the right side of this board, so I'm putting the majority of the text pieces kind of to the left and around the edges, and then the piece that has the line drawing of the girls with the umbrella is going to go right where her face is going to go, and my hope is that just some of those fine lines show through. So everything's down and I'm going to dry it off, and I'm just showing short parts of the drying process. And then I took my homemade texture paste, which it's fairly thin, and I added some, I'm not sure what color I added. I think it was, yeah, it was the Quinacridone nickel azo gold, but it tinted way up because of the white of the texture paste. But I'm just going over the whole board and kind of scraping back in some places to let some of that text show through more. The text pieces really mostly ended up being just kind of a base. You don't see very much of it. And then, sorry about the dog. We're having a big storm here right now, so he's kind of freaking out over the thunder. I grabbed a piece of rust dyed cheesecloth that I had in my stash. I made a whole bunch of it a while back, and I just pushed it into the texture paste and then cut out a section where I want to draw the face, because I can't draw it over top of the cheesecloth. So I opened up an area for the drawing and then just kind of went around it, pushed the edges down with some more of the texture paste, and taking my brayer here and pushing that cheesecloth into the texture paste really well so that it doesn't come up later. And then just using my finger as usual, got to get my fingers in there, and just pushing it down, trimming it off at the bottom, and then I just kind of go around the edge and scrunch it up so that it's a little more organic looking and it doesn't have a hard edge where it was cut. And then I kind of wipe back here and there where the texture paste maybe came through the cheesecloth a little too heavily, and then also there where I'm going to put the face. I wanted some of that text to show through. Now I'm going in with a Derwent Graphitone pencil. It's a water-soluble graphite. If you watch my channel, you've seen me use these before. One of my favorite art supplies. to use, especially when I'm doing faces, whether I'm using acrylics or watercolors, because just with a little water on the brush, as you see me doing here, and I can move that color around. I can take it off completely. The nice thing is that it, for a period of time, it does stay water soluble, so I can reactivate it. Once it's dried good and completely, it doesn't move a whole lot, but throughout this whole process I was able to come back in and continue to move it where it's heavy enough. I can keep moving it. Sometimes you have to go back in and just add more graphite if you need a line darker or whatever, but just getting a start here on a face, getting the shape formed in, and just kind of a hint of hair. I'm not being too precious about hair on this girl, just kind of a little bob, I guess, and just drawing that. And I will go back and forth between the pencil and the drying. And I'm just showing you, I'm using a medium wash. They come in a set of 3 different washes, a light, a medium, and a dark, so I'm just using the medium here. So now I'm going back in and darkening up some areas where I want more of that graphite to be. And darkening around her face where there would be naturally be more of a shadow. And I'm just cleaning up the lines along her neck where things got a little rough. And drying yet another layer. And you'll notice it does dry a little bit lighter than it is when it's wet. I just really love these pencils. And I'm just blocking in her eyes. I like to make dots that show like the distance between the eyes first, and then when I put the eyes on, I make the eyes about that same width. I had her nose and mouth up too high, so as you can see, you can erase before you wet the water soluble graphite. It is erasable, so I just erased it and moved her nose and mouth down a little bit. And I'm just blocking in some features, just real simply, and then going back in with the brush and activating the graphite. And I think I'm just going to leave you with some music while I kind of finish up this face, because it's just kind of a lot of going back and forth and back and forth, strengthening the lines and taking some away and going back in and fixing things. So I'm just going to add some music at this point. Okay, so I decided that that blue cheesecloth wasn't going to work, so I took that away and I tore some pieces from a old dress pattern, and so I'm just putting those down with some fluid matte medium. And I'm wishing that I hadn't gone across her hair. Turns out okay in the end, but I wish I had moved that to the left a little bit more. I really like the way the dress pattern paper looks. It kind of melds into the background, and up close you can just really see the texture of the cheesecloth come right through the paper. It just kind of melts down into the texture. I just wanted some kind of graphic element there to the left of the face, so just those little arrows and letters. And then I grabbed another piece of rusted cheesecloth, and I thought this would kind of serve as sort of a bit of clothing, if you will, or shoulders, so that she doesn't look so much like a floating head. So I just used some heavy gel medium and put that down there at the bottom. Just kind of futzed with the edges to get them the way I wanted them. You know, cheesecloth has a tendency to curl up on the edges, so I just put it down in the middle and then folded it up from the bottom onto itself just to get it off the edge of the board. I don't mind little bits and pieces hanging over the edges, but I didn't want that great big piece hanging down at the bottom. And I grabbed a Neocolor crayon, Payne's gray, of course, and I'm just reestablishing her hair there where it kind of got lost underneath the paper. So I'm just bringing that hair forward a little bit more, and I decided I liked it, so I'm just going to go over all of her hair with the Neocolor crayon, and I'm just wetting my fingers in my water basin and spreading it out. And drying it off. Then I went back with my Graphitone pencil again to bring some definition back to some of the lines of her features. It kind of got lost because I put that Quinacridone Nickel Hazel Gold on her face with my fingers, and where I hit the Graphitone pencil with the water when I smeared it around, or with the paint when I smeared it around, I kind of lost some of the lines. And then as I stood back and looked at it, I realized I need some light. It was starting to just look a little flat. So I'm just using my fingers to apply gesso, kind of here and there, everywhere. It helps bring the figure forward a little bit, but it also helps just kind of push everything else back a little and bring some light to the piece. And I'm just wetting my brush and spreading it out so it doesn't look so patchy. You have to be careful not to hit the Neocolor and the Graphitone very much though with water. It will reactivate, so trying to avoid that. And I'm sorry if all my turning is making you dizzy, but that's how I work. I'm constantly turning my work. just gluing that corner piece of cheesecloth down a little better with some heavy gel medium. And then I just went in with some real watered down Payne's gray acrylic on my fan brush to add some splatters. And I also added a piece of muslin down the left hand side there. There you can see the texture that's starting to build up. Starting to like it. So then I grabbed some mulberry paper and ripped some pieces, and using my acrylic block and my Alpha 3 alphabet stamps by Iron Orchid Design, I stamped those 3 words onto the mulberry paper, just using archival ink and jet black, and I'm putting those down on the piece with matte medium. The mulberry paper kind of does the same thing as the dress paper, pattern paper did. It just kind of melts into whatever's underneath it, so you don't see any real hard edges, which I like. Wasn't real sure for a long time what I was going to end up doing on that left side, but I really like what I chose. I feel like explore, dream, and discover kind of defines how I work, because I kind of never know where I'm going and I discover things along the way. I'm just using that Neocolor II water-soluble crayon in Payne's gray to underscore the words a little bit and smear that out with my finger. And she's done. I hope you enjoyed watching the process. I hope you'll subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Share this video with your friends, give it a thumbs up, and go make some art. Bye!